All right, welcome to the latest episode of All Things LOCS. We got a special guest, Roshun Jones, is a self-sabotage expert who helps faith-based entrepreneurs break free from procrastination, indecision, and hidden mental blocks that keep them stuck. And he does this by utilizing a blend of neuro-linguistic programming, high-performance coaching, and deep mindset reprogramming. And I think it's fair to say we could all probably use some of that right now. Yep. Roshun, welcome to the show. Glad you're here, man.
Thanks for having me.
So, it's a lot to unpack. Why don't we start by helping people understand what a self-sabotage expert is? Because I guarantee there's probably people out there saying, like, whatever it is, that sounds like I need it.
Yeah. I made it up.
Oh, okay. That sounds about right. Like everybody else on social media, it's like, here's my new title.
Exactly. But I was just last night, I was on ChatGPT, and I said, what should I call myself? And it's a self-sabotage expert.
It sounds amazing.
I was like, let's go with that. Yeah. So what I do is, I went through this progression, right? So I was helping entrepreneurs with their mindset. And what I found is that a lot of entrepreneurs, they were running up against the same patterns over and over and over again, meaning that they were getting in their own way. I would sit down with clients and I would ask them, they would come into me and they say, hey, like, I want to increase my revenue. I want to have a better marriage. I want to lose weight. I want to do all these things. And I said, well, what's stopping you from doing that? And then they would pause and they say, me. And I would hear more people say it over and over. And it finally hit me one day. I was like, me? Like, why do they keep saying me? It's because like every single one of them, they were getting in their own way. And so I started to do a deep dive into self-sabotage. And I was like, yeah, that's what I do. I help people to stop self-sabotaging their own success. And that's where self-sabotage expert came from.
So what would be a good example of that? Like some people maybe do like in everyday life.
Procrastination.
Okay.
Yeah.
Expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I'm a self-proclaimed procrastinator.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like who hasn't done
that? Yeah, if you're a high performer, like if you're a high performer, procrastination is like in your toolbox. And what this looks like is we know what to do, but we just put it off. And at the end of the day, procrastination is just a disguise for fear. And so we fear success, we fear failure, we feel criticism, we fear losing. At the end of it, at the core, we just fear.
So I want to play devil's advocate there because there's been a lot of discussion, over, I don't know, maybe the last 12 months about procrastination, but there's been a big uptick in the conversation around ADHD. Okay. Right? Like adult ADHD and how that is causing your procrastination. So I'm just curious to know what your opinion on that is and if it's valid or if it's just like, are we creating maybe an excuse to not, go forward?
Yeah. So I get a lot of people that come in and they say they have ADHD. And so the difference between ADHD, and I'm not a doctor, so I want to disclaim that.
Yes.
And so the difference that I've seen, the difference between ADHD and self-sabotaging is ADHD, it applies to majority of the areas of your life. So you'll have someone who particularly, they have issues getting things done in one area of their life versus all areas of their life. So if it's all areas of their life, in the end, they've been doing it since they were like a young age, ADHD. If it's like, well, my career isn't going the way that I want it to, and it started 5 years ago, self-sabotage. Because self-sabotage usually comes from a deep-rooted unconscious pattern, which stemmed from a traumatic event. And so working together, we're able to find out what that traumatic event was and what the pattern is, and then we can rewrite that pattern.
So you mentioned a lot about fears.
Absolutely.
If you talk to a high performer, right, especially if, don't take this the wrong way, guys, but if you talk to men, they're like, I'm not scared of anything. I have no fears. But how does that really show up? And what actually causes us to have those maybe unconscious fears that we're just not fully aware of?
Yeah, particularly with men, right? So men have a fear of asking for help.
No, get out of here. Really? every woman's like, yeah, you ever going to drive with a guy?
Like you can see all the women now going, that's you, right? So that's one example is asking for help. And that's not just asking for help with mental and mindset and all that stuff, but we're fixers. We like to have solutions for everything. And so we would rather struggle at something for a long time versus going to someone who knows how to do what I don't know how to do, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So what would that actually create? Like when you look at the inability to maybe ask for help, and I know we're talking a little bit about maybe some vulnerability, right? Being transparent, honest, and open. Like how does that typically show up when it's like, I just don't want to bother people, or I can figure it out myself? Like what kind of consequences do you see in those high performers when they have that kind of habit or pattern?
Right. So let's start at the root of why someone would be unwilling to ask for help.
Sure.
Right? So I believe at the root of it, there's a belief of I'm not worthy, right? Or there's some variant of that. They don't feel deserving of someone else's help. They don't feel deserving of asking for help, so they don't do it. And so that will likely play out in other areas of their life. And so them not asking for help is just a symptom of a deeper issue. And so them not asking for help and them not feeling worthy, it's going to show up in their marriage. It's going to show up in all the relationships with their friends, family, in their business. A lot of high achievers or entrepreneurs, they have a lack of trust. And so when lack of trust shows up in their business, they don't hire the people they need to hire. These are the people that go around doing everything themselves.
Yep.
And they feel burned out, right? And they're not taking their business to the next level because they're trying to be a one-man show.
I'm so glad you brought that up, right? Because the entrepreneurial mindset for a lot of us is very controlling, right? Typically, if you're going to like maybe a disc or a personality style, it's like very dominant. It's like it needs to kind of control and manage everything. Right. What is what's a great way somebody could start learning to trust, right? Especially it's just that mindset, like my way is the best way, or I want results like now. And sometimes it's obviously unrealistic. You know, it's like, hey, can I get the result done yesterday for what I'm asking right now? But how would you coach somebody on how to just like relax it a little bit, so to speak, and trust people so you can start delegating and really working on those activities that only you can work on while simultaneously reducing the feelings of being burned out?
Right. So there are no business problems, only personal problems that show up in your business.
That's a good one.
Yeah, every entrepreneur needs to understand that. We think that it's about distribution. We think it's about employees. We think it's about, every day-to-day issue that you're dealing with. But at the core of it, it's a personal problem, meaning that at some level, there's some belief system that's causing the problems in your life that's showing up in your business. So not trusting. If someone doesn't trust, for instance, an employee to do something, that really is, again, that's a symptom of a deeper belief system that they have. So we need to get to that. We need to understand what our current belief system is, rewire that, and then we get to show up seeing the world differently, right? Because there is no reality, right? What we call reality is based off of how we perceive it. And how we perceive it is based off of the rules, the beliefs that we use to guide us in our life.
Okay, so what do you mean, if you could expand on that, what do you mean by rules / beliefs?
Yeah. So rules and beliefs are synonymous, meaning that we all have rules that we live by. I believe that this, I believe that, right? And these stem from our values. Yes. These are the things that are important to us. And so in our life, we believe, for instance, let's say someone, they believe that they can't trust anyone because someone,
screwed them over back in the day.
Exactly.
Yep.
Right. So now that's a rule, an unconscious rule that they go by. And so they go to work and they go, well, I don't trust people. And then someone says, you have an eager employee comes in and says, come on, Dan, like I really want to help take the business to the next level. But in your mind, you're thinking, not you, I'm using it as an example.
Yeah.
In your mind, you're thinking, well, man, the last time I trusted somebody, they screwed me over. So how is this situation going to be any different? And so what the mind will do is it will look for evidence to support that belief. 60 to 70,000 thoughts we have every single day, right? 80% of them are negative thoughts. And 95% of those thoughts are the thoughts that we had yesterday. And so what the mind is doing is just continually reinforcing the beliefs that we currently have, which is why it's so hard to change for people, because the mind has optimized on doing what it already knows how to do.
So I want to ask something on that, but I'm going to ask something first, which is, we were talking about this before we started filming about embracing uncertainty versus how majority of people like to know, step by step, like what's happening tomorrow, what's happening next week. So, when we look at people being able to kind of break free from some of their past thoughts and, what have you, how do we just make the shift from needing to control everything and needing to know exactly when everything is happening to just, I have no control over that and I'm okay with it and I'll focus on what I can control.
Yeah. I think it comes with awareness. Like we were talking earlier, you hear a lot of people talk about mindfulness and being in the present and all that stuff. Right? That really that's all there is.
Yeah.
Is the present when you really think about it. I mean, we can get into, again, quantum and we can start to get really off into the ethers and stuff, but all we have is this current moment. I bet we both can agree that a year ago, neither one of us knew that we were going to be sitting here today. Right?
Correct.
Yet here we are.
Yep.
We have no idea what tomorrow is going to look like. So if we with our best guess, even if you have a schedule, you have no idea what it's going to look like. So if we know that, if we're aware of that, that alleviates us from the pressures of having to get it right.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, see, I nailed it. I knew that I was going to wake up at 7:53 and I was going to drive and I was going to be at this stoplight and it was going to be green and all the details laid out. We can just alleviate ourselves from that because all we have is this very moment and we can be present. From there, it's about, again, understanding our emotions, our thoughts, our beliefs. It's relaying back to us things that need to be addressed. So if we find that we're someone that is depressed, for instance, we know that there's something that's unresolved from the past. If we are worried about something in the future, which is where anxiety comes from, then we know that there's some unresolved fear that we need to address, fear and worry. So awareness is our first metric on determining which direction to go. Once we know the thoughts that we're having, we can categorize them, and then we go, all right, so where do we go from here with that?
So where do these rules that we all come up with? And I think it is important for people to know it's we create these rules, right? So it's not like somebody else said, here, Roshun, this is the 5 core values / rules you're going to have for the rest of your life. We create them, but how do we start identifying them?
Yeah.
If not getting fully in touch with them, and then how do we start making some changes on them once you find, you said, my rule is I can't trust people, or my belief is okay, how is that helping or hurting you? But how would I change it once I view it as maybe a negative aspect?
Yeah. I say that we catch rules, we catch beliefs. There's an infinite number of beliefs that swirl around us every single day. What happens is we make a decision to adopt it, right? You could sit here all day and you could come up with you could just spout out beliefs, just generalized beliefs that people have, negative beliefs.
Yep.
I have to choose at an unconscious level to adopt it. So where do they come from? Friends, families, news, social media, all that stuff. We're bombarded with these beliefs every single day. And so having that awareness around which beliefs am I adopting is the first step. 2, when we're put into situations, that thought comes up. At some point, we're consciously aware of it, whether it be we have an emotion that comes up. So let's say we have an opportunity that we're faced with and fear comes up. Well, you ask yourself, so what is it that I'm feeling? Okay, I'm fearful. What is the thought that's creating the fear? Well, if I screw up, then people are going to judge me, right? So now that we have that, we can rewrite that script, right? We can rewrite it to, I'm a capable person and I'm taking risks in life so that I can grow. There is no such thing as failure. There's only feedback, right? We start to tell ourselves a different belief, and we continually do that because our brains it loves patterns. And the more positive patterns you can give it, the more it'll go, oh, okay, so we're no longer on that old script anymore. Now we're on this new script. And so that's why affirmations work so well, because all you're doing is just programming your mind to tell it what you want it to believe.
So it's almost like creating a new identity, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely.
So considering that so much of what we think, and we don't know that we're thinking it, but so much of what we think is negative. And then you have a high performer, whether it's an entrepreneur or just somebody who's maybe not owning a business but running a business at a very high level. Is it fair to say that they have the same thoughts as the people who are maybe struggling, but they have found a way to overcome them? And I guess because my question is, like, you see people, when you look at the most successful, I think it's very easy to assume, well, they never have any bad thoughts, right? They're so mentally strong. But I find, and I'll let you correct me if I'm wrong, I find that a lot of them have the same thoughts, but they just have ways to get past it.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're wired to have negative thoughts. Like our bodies, our brain wants to protect us. It's constantly scanning for danger out in the world. Like this goes back to caveman days. So it's not bad that we have these negative thoughts. Like these thoughts are actually trying to protect us. I think the difference between someone who is quote unquote successful is their ability to navigate through that. For instance, they talk about, the difference, or having courage. Courage is doing something even though fear is present. And a lot of people lack courage. They allow the fear to stop them and hold them back versus going into the thing and being okay that things may not work out the way they expect it.
So what would be the positive outcome of somebody doing that, right? Because it is terrifying. And, we're talking about high achievers, but it's not a matter of sports or celebrities. It's, business owners. It's, starting that new business or taking some kind of risk where it's very scary, right? It's like you're kind of on the edge. It's like bungee jumping. It's like, do I go or do I not? So what would you say for that person who says, Roshun, I'm terrified of failing? What's the positive result of them doing it, especially if they do fail?
Right. So one, if someone is in a position where they're absolutely terrified of doing something, we have to break it into smaller steps. A lot of times the fear comes from it's so daunting to do that thing. If I told you, hey, go out and start a Fortune 500 company tomorrow, you'd be like that'd be so new and foreign to you. You'd be like, I don't even know where to first start.
I'll accept that challenge. All right. Tomorrow, let's go.
Make me one of your shareholders. I'm like, sign me up. So we break it into little baby steps. Hey, go out, find the name, like come up with a name, file an LLC, so on and so forth, break it into little baby steps. The benefit of doing that is one, no one's ever ready. Like we always talk about when I'm ready, I'm going to go start that business, or when I'm ready, I'm going to go do this, right? You get ready when you take action. And so more people need to take action. That's what's holding a lot of people back, is just not taking action for fear of failure. When you do that, there's a part of your brain that actually grows. And you actually through neuroplasticity, it just starts to rewire. And one, you become more immune to all the BS that stops people, right? And your brain just it goes out and it finds the information out there that supports, again, you said identity, this new version of yourself. Right now, people are walking around with the identity of, I can't do it, right? So what is your brain going to do? It's going to go out and find all the information out in the world that confirms that bias. Oh, you said you can't do it? All right. So here's the thing that tells you can't do it. Here's another thing that tells you can't do it, and so on and so forth. If you tell yourself, I can do it, and see, look what I did. I got the name. I got the LLC. I did this. I did that. I hired an employee. Now your brain is going, oh, he can do it. So let me go out and find other information that supports that bias. And that's like the life hack.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to, like you said, small steps, but then I think the last part you added in of just acknowledging it, and you hear celebrate your small wins, right? And I think that's what it's all about. It's like stacking one small win on top of another. And I think we're all looking for that massive, like you said, hey, I started it, and then 5 months later, hey, I built the company and sold it. It's like, that's not realistic. It takes time. Right. So how do you get those small daily or weekly wins where it's like, all right, I'm making progress and I'm moving in the right direction? Because I feel like that's very, you see people say just take action. It's like, well, what does that look like? And then how big should it be and how small should it be. So I think it sounds like what you're describing is like just focus on making progress, acknowledge the progress, celebrate it, and then when you look back, you'll see how much growth you actually encountered.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and there's an element of expectation that's part of that as well. I think a lot of people, they set really high expectations of themselves. You know, there's a saying that, you know, so happiness equals observations less expectations, or expectations less observations. It's a difference between what you expect and what you observe. And so what happens is people set these really high expectations for themselves, but what they observe is less than.
Yeah.
And so they're not happy. Instead of being happy in the fact that you're making these little these small steps towards your goal.
Yeah, you know, Tony Robbins likes to say people overestimate what they can do in a year, right, and then underestimate what they can do in 10. And I've made that mistake. Like, look at these big ass goals I'm going to do, and then I'm like, I didn't even get anywhere close. Like, what was I thinking? I wasn't realistic at all.
Yes.
But then what kept me from being completely crushed and defeated was like, all right, but look how much progress I made. I just set the wrong number on that goal, so it's making the right adjustment. But I love the viewpoint. You know, the way I look at this too is there's a race that they have in the Empire State Building every year that these individuals run up. It's like a race up the stairs, which whatever you want to do that. Yeah, I wouldn't do that, but hey, yeah, right. But I've thought about that as we're talking about this kind of progress and taking the small wins. I'm like, man, imagine running up like 50 flights of stairs and looking up to see how much further you have to go. And like some people would probably be crushed. But then somebody else would look down and be like, look how far I came. Yeah. Right. And I'm like, I feel like that's what we're talking a lot about here. It's like big goals or big progression. That's like you have to just acknowledge what you're doing as positive and progressing along the way. Yeah. Having that kind of belief structure, and you mentioned at the beginning about how a lot of business is really a lot about personal, like meaning that the person who is running it, in charge, what have you, the way they're operating dictates what's going on in the company. Just if you get to expand upon that a little bit in terms of the mindset or belief structures that an owner or director or manager might have, and how that affects something, simply as like company culture, or even being able to have employees who strategically think ahead with a vision. Like, how does that affect that?
Yeah, there was something that came when you were talking about the race in New York. So I'm a cyclist, and so I do double centuries, so 200-mile, 205-mile bike rides. Nice, right? And so one year, I decided that I was going to do it in one day. Didn't really train for it. I just thought, why not?
Yeah, we've all done that, right? Yeah. Like, I'm going to run this marathon with no training.
Yeah.
Sure.
Why not? And it was horrible. And I got to probably I got dropped. I was with a group. I got dropped at like mile 40 or something like that.
Peace out, bro.
I wasn't even, they were like, we'll see you there.
Yep.
And then I got to about mile 110 or 20 or so, and I was done. Like, physically, I was exhausted. I just, like, I couldn't pedal another foot. I was done. And I remember I got to a park, and it was a little lunch stop, and I ate, and I just took a nap for like an hour. I just laid there. And I had every thought in my mind telling me to quit. In addition to that, I had every negative thought I ever had in my life was running through my head. Not this, not that, you're this, like all the things. Like it was a moment by myself that I'll always remember to this day. How does this relate to business? I believe that like how you do one thing is how you do everything. And what keeps entrepreneurs stuck in life and holds their business back is that they give up when it gets tough. They allow those thoughts, all the thoughts that they tell themselves, whether they're at business or they're at home, they're telling themselves these things. Again, over 80% of those thoughts are negative, of the 60 to 70,000 that we have a day. And these aren't thoughts that we're actually going, this, right? It's unconscious things, just like your heart's beating right now. When you can get to a place where your mindset is so fortified that no matter what that thought is, no matter what you're telling yourself, that you're going to continue to push through because you know that those thoughts are just lies, you will succeed. It may not be tomorrow, it may not be the next day, but if you continue on, you will succeed. You have to. Yeah. You just have to. But people don't have the staying power to get there because they've been believing this lie all their life. And so when they finally get to a point where the pain is too strong, that's where they bail out, because that's what the brain wants. It wants to be comfortable. So they find that comfortable place, which is giving up on their dream.
Now, I would say it's very easy to see that in like somebody who's new, right? They're just starting a business out, or they're, it's like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, and then they get their first level of resistance, and it's like, oh shit, this is like way scary, or not what I thought it was. Everybody on social media made it seem like it's so easy. But what about like that business owner is like, all right, I'm established, we've done well. Do I take it to the next level? Mm-hmm. Right? It's like maybe if you're a healthcare organization, like we got 3 clinics, but I'm going to bring on some new services and open up 2 more clinics. Yep. But then I'm terrified. Yep. So like, how does that same kind of mindset play a role with that individual of like, you either grow or you're going to start kind of like coming down a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, it's exactly what you said. Like you can't exceed your belief system, right? At some level, like you said, if there's fear about, usually with high performers, they fear going to the next level because they're barely making it at the level that they're at. And so that's what's coming up for them. They're like, shit, like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm running a clinic that has like 10 people and stuff like that. We're good. We're keeping it together, right? The dream though is to like have different branches, different locations and stuff. But they're thinking unconsciously, even consciously, man, I'm barely making it now. I don't sleep. I don't eat. My health is crap. My relationship is going to hell. Like, why do I want to go do this now? Yeah. Right. And so getting okay where you're at, like fixing the belief system that you currently have, right? You can expand without having to give up your personal time and stuff like that. You can expand without feeling burned out. Again, a lot of the burnout, the procrastinating, the fear, all these things are just a result of something that you've been telling yourself, which is a lie. When you get to a point where, think about it, there are entrepreneurs out there that run multiple businesses. How do they do it? Yeah. Right? If you're someone out there that's struggling like to manage your one business, right? And you compare that to someone who's running multiple multi-million-dollar businesses, they have the same 24 hours in the day. How do they do it? They have to be leveraging other people, obviously. And to leverage other people, to have the complexity of thinking, they have to be good within themselves. They have to trust that the CEO, the president of this business isn't stealing money from them, isn't going to screw them over. But I was in a business with a guy that screwed me over too. So resolve that. That way you don't have the issues with starting the next business and giving someone else control over the finances.
Yeah, I mean, that's we have to learn from the people that are doing it, right? So like to your point, it's like, all right, what about this guy or this person is running actively 14 businesses but somehow has their hands in like 100, and then you're like, man, I'm struggling like running my deli or like my one medical practice. And it's just understanding, to his point, is like how to kind of improve those belief structures that we have, understanding what values are really important to you, but then kind of complementing them with, all right, we still need some systems in place, some checks and balances, some things like that, where it's like, I can trust you, but I'm a big fan of like trust but verify. It's like, I'm gonna like oversee it, but I'm not gonna like micromanage you. Right. So I think that those things really go hand in hand too. It's like fix yourself, but then like put the things in place that are meant to actually help you. Absolutely. Whether it's like you said, people, resources, systems, what have you.
Yeah. On that, if someone is telling themselves, I'm not organized, right? Let's say they have that belief. Yep. You will not see an SOP anywhere in their organization, right? So that's another example of how a belief will show up and hinder that business structure, because they'll say, we just kind of like we'll just kind of go by the day, however it goes. No SOPs. You hire people, go talk to Jen. She'll onboard you. She'll get you caught up, right? Because that's how they see the world. They see the world as not needing to have like structure.
Yeah, guilty. I've done it. Yeah, I've done that back in the day. I'm like, the SOPs, they're all in my head. And I was like, that doesn't really help everybody else, especially if something happens to me. Right. So get your SOPs going. So then when we're looking at just the company mindset, company culture, so to speak.
Right.
What's the best thing that entrepreneur who's running the business can do to take what they've done here and now kind of transplant that or help their team kind of foster that same mentality?
Yeah. So as an entrepreneur, you have a different complexity of thinking than your employees does. Just, it will across the board. Does that mean that you're not going to have employees that don't think like a business owner? Not saying that.
Yeah.
But in general, the complexity of thinking, so this whole conversation stems around the progression of someone's like conscious thinking, their complexity of thinking. When you start a business, you're thinking at one level. You just see the world differently. Employees, they clock in, they do their thing, they go home. Most of them aren't going to run your business the way that you run your business. They just don't have the investment in it that you do. As a business owner, you have to understand the differences between their value systems, their belief systems, and your values and belief systems. And you have to be able to go back and forth, meaning that SOPs is a good example. As a business owner, right, a lot of entrepreneurs are like, that's for them. Like I have the SOP, but you follow the SOP, and I'm going to do my own thing, right? So it's what we call like playing in like level 4 is what like that values level of the consciousness is. Entrepreneurship would be values level 5. As an entrepreneur, you play in both fields, so that you can communicate and connect through their values and belief systems. If you went to one of your employees and said, hey, we really need to do this so that we can increase our bottom line, they don't have the complexity of thinking to even understand what that means.
Or they just don't care.
Yeah,
it's
like
my company.
Exactly. That's just going to buy you another car or whatever the case may be, right? And so there's a way in which you can communicate the same thing, right? Because if you were talking to like your spouse that was at the same level, or you're talking to your business partner, they understand what it means to increase the bottom line,
100%.
right? And it just hits them differently. But to the employee, there has to be a way in which you can incentivize them through using their value and belief system. So understanding what that culture looks like for employees versus what the culture looks like for business owners, and just bridging that gap.
Yeah. So, and I really like that, because here's a belief that I generally despise amongst business owners, which is the employees should care as much as I do.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, I know. It's like, dude, you're making like 20 times more than everybody else, but we're supposed to have the same level of care that you do. It's like, it just doesn't make any sense. Or they should work as hard as I do. Again,
good luck with
you're making 20, or if not like 1,000 times more. It's like, yeah, why would they do that? With that understanding, all right, what's our overall outcome that we're chasing here, right? It's fine. I'm not going to get the new car like you are, but like, am I working towards something that's at least making me feel like somewhat fulfilled? Like I have a purpose here.
Right.
So then I'm going to make a little bit of a shift. We were talking earlier, and you had mentioned based on what some things that had gone on in your life, that in the past, if you'd be in the same situation, you'd be like maybe struggling potentially, whereas now you're like, I'm actually like very calm. And we started talking about the ability to embrace uncertainty versus where a lot of people are at nowadays of living in this need to be certain. So if you could just explain a little bit about just that concept, and then for your own journey, not like getting into the details necessarily, but just like what enabled you to go from maybe a little uncontrolled to now just like I'm fully in control.
Yeah, at the top level, I would say that 99% of the things that people worry about is BS.
Get out of here.
Yeah, I mean, shocking.
I know. No way.
It is. I mean,
newsflash.
Yeah, and it's so our society makes a big deal of things that aren't big deals, and a lot of people are on this, a rat race, in the rat race, to say to use that term, and they're chasing something that's like they're chasing a ghost. And so when you get clear on like what your purpose is, and that's what you're focused on, you find that thing, like all the noise just kind of cancels out. And so I think that a lot of people, they get burned out, they're stressed, they're not moving forward, is because they're hearing too many voices. They're hearing that they need to make this amount of money. They're hearing that they need to scale this way. They're hearing that and then they're also hearing all the stuff they're telling themselves. When you can like peel back all the noise and just like get rid of all of that and start to hear your purpose and start aligning with your purpose, things just get so much easier. Because you're not having to deal with all the energetic pull from all the stuff that's not getting you where you want to get to in the first place.
Yeah. So if I'm that individual, and maybe I'm that skeptic, and I'm like, find your purpose, that sounds like some kind of BS I see on social media. Or like, know your why from Simon Sinek. It sounds like crap. Yeah. What does that actually mean, right? Because it's like, well, we hear about like working for passion and things like that. And I think that's another conversation to be had. But like, what do you exactly mean for somebody who's like, all right, what do you mean by like just find my purpose? Yeah. And like, how does that like help me block out the noise? Yeah.
So, I mean, it's one way that you can look at purpose is like, what would you do that you would do for free? You know, like that you weren't being financially compensated for.
Complain. No. That's some people's jobs nowadays.
Yeah, I would. Man, you could pay me to a lot of stuff to say. People are burned out because they're misaligned with a purpose, meaning that for instance, I was sharing with you earlier that, so I was a software engineer for over 2 decades. I have a graduate degree in computer science. Like that was my life. That was my world. And one day I had decided that I wasn't going to do that anymore. And I completely quit my job, had no idea what I was going to do next, had no job lined up. I just knew that what I was doing isn't what I was going to be doing tomorrow. And I was on this personal development path, and I was starting to clear up all the gunk and trauma and all that stuff from the past. And so my purpose started to get clear. Did I know exactly what it was? Nope. Did I quit my job even though I knew that I didn't know what it was? Yup. And as I was continuing to take action, the path just got clearer and clearer, and I just started going in a certain direction. And so for me, that's how purpose drove my life. I was miserable. I was like the most depressed I had ever been, even though I did everything that society told me to do. Go to school, get a good job, right? And I did that, and I was miserable. And there's a lot of people out there that are in the same position because they believed the lies, they believe the beliefs, they have the rules that tell them that this is the way that their life is supposed to go, but they're just so disconnected from it. And that's why they're disconnected from their life, because they're disconnected from their purpose.
See, and where I find to kind of add a little bit to that as well is like those individuals, they kind of go down that pathway and they're like, all right, I was deceived, I was lied to, but then they don't do anything else, right? It's like, I hate my job. It's like, then why don't you try to do something else, right? And then that kind of leads into the conversation of personal responsibility and accountability, right? So then where does that tie in, right? It's like, all right, Roshun, fine. You gave me a reason to, I could blame somebody now. It was society's fault that I got this crappy job and that I'm miserable. Yeah. Where's the accountability come in?
I think a lot of people have a hard time admitting that they were deceived. I think that's like one of the biggest challenges that people have. You could put truth right in front of their face, and they would still find some way to disbelieve that because they believe this their whole life. And that's hard for people to like overcome that initial inertia of like, well, I was lied to, because, okay, here's what it is. So all the lies and the beliefs that shaped their identity up to that point. And now if you put truth in front of their face, they're like, well, damn, who am I then? It's more comfortable to stay the version that they were versus becoming someone that they don't know. Even though that version of them can be a significantly better version of themselves, mentally it's a huge, huge hurdle to overcome. They have all this momentum being that version of themselves that was making them unhappy, but they don't have the momentum being the version that they're not yet. And so that initial inertia, getting that inertia going is what comes from taking action, even though they're fearful.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, and you see that, right? It's like, how could you present somebody with facts, legitimate facts? I'm like, nope, that's not the way it is. It's like, because it would create an identity shift. It's like, well, I've believed this my whole life. Now you're showing me the opposite. It's like, A, now I got to deal with the fact that I was wrong.
Yeah.
That I was A, deceived, and B, I was wrong.
Yeah.
And then I feel like that also creates, you know, we talk about like fears. I mean, nobody wants to feel stupid, right? Or feel like they made a bad decision. Or certainly if you're 40 or 50, it's like, I've believed this for 40 or 50 years and I've been wrong the whole time.
Yeah.
So there is that level of feeling very uncomfortable with acknowledging that you weren't following the right path.
Right.
So I love that explanation. So,
well, and that's an interesting thing that you said, like the right path.
Yeah.
See, we're so programmed that there's a right path.
Yes. The right path for us.
Yeah.
That's the thing, right? It's like what works for us.
Right.
Doesn't mean it's for everybody.
Right.
So then when we're, you get to that point, maybe of self-discovery a little bit, you get very uncomfortable. What's like the next step somebody takes to kind of turn the page? And, you know, even for you, like, so for your own experience, you're like, oh my God, I'm like, feel a little uncomfortable and I'm feeling anxious. And now it's like, that doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah.
What enabled you to turn that page?
Yeah. You got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Like, as far as like what we were saying earlier, there is the only certainty that is that you're going to die. You know, people say there's going to be taxes and death, but
Some people don't pay the taxes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so I'm just going to say you're going to die. You're going to die at some point. That's a certainty. And so other than that, everything else is up in the air. So why even worry about it? Yeah, I think, again, it is, for me, the shift happened when I let go of everything that I had, not everything, when I let go of the lies that I was believing, that was a shift for me. When I started to see that there was a whole world out there that I had no idea about, that I felt I was restricted from, that was a shift for me. Like, I don't subscribe to the whole victim mentality. I don't subscribe to the, you know, oh, I'm black, or oh, I came from this neighborhood, or oh, as a kid, I used to always tell myself I could put a man on the moon if I had enough time, money, and resources. I don't know where it came from, but just little Real was walking around telling himself that, right? And at some point, I lost that. I think society just kind of beat me up enough where I lost that part of me. And when I was able to connect back with that part, then it was game on. Like, you can't tell me that I can't do something now.
Yeah. It's almost like we, you kind of have like that. It's why I like talking to kids. It's sometimes so amazing, right? Because I have this curiosity about them and the imagination. Yeah. And then we just lose it. Yeah. Yeah. And then it's like, I can't even come up with a goal that's imaginative. And it's like, when you're young, it's like you said, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I'm going to like start 5 companies, or I'm going to like be a superstar. And then it's like, man, I can't even think of anything for tomorrow. Like, yeah. So it's definitely,
Oh, so our minds, it doesn't know the difference between real and made up. So if you treat your brain like a computer, imagination is the keyboard. It's the keyboard, it's the code, it's everything. When we were kids, play is so huge in development for a reason. When we were kids, we could be anything, right? I can't remember when I realized that jumping off a roof with a grocery bag on my back wasn't safe. But there was a point in which I did. I was like, it's a parachute, right? I'm gonna like float. I'm gonna be safe. But at some point, that went out the window. And it happens with a lot of different people. One, the question is, why? Why has society stripped away our imagination? Right? And 2, what would happen if we all realized that and said, our imagination is the biggest thing that we can use to become the person that we want? Like, we can change our lives with imagination. Because if our minds doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's made up, which is why we cry at movies, which is why we say we empathize with the characters and stuff like that, our minds think it's us. And so if we can imagine ourselves being that CEO that has 50 different businesses, our mind is going to go, I agree. Yeah. Let me go out and do the things that I need to do unconsciously to make that happen. So I just wanted to say that because like people need to understand how powerful imagination is. We call it fake it till you make it, but that's what it is.
Yeah.
We're programming our minds to believe that we are that person so that it unconsciously goes out. It changes our thoughts. It changes our behaviors. It changes the world around us.
Yeah, I mean, that's I don't think it can be understated, right? It's like if you can't picture even the person you want to become, how are you ever going to do anything more than what you're at? You know, and like if you're running like a business too, again, it's even something as simple as just, all right, you have goals. Can you be imaginative enough to come up with some goals? Or if your team members, you want them to come up with goals for themselves, like a person. You know, I know for me, I'd love sitting down with employees and just working on not just company goals, but what are some personal goals? And I'd get them back. I'm like, what is this? This kind of sucks. No offense. Like, come on, man, put some imagination into it, and like come up with something that's really juicy that gives you something to work towards. So I really love that aspect. What is next for you? Like, what is the big thing Roshun's working on now? And what's, we're talking about purpose and, your why. Like, what's the thing that you're focusing on? Like, here's the next summit for me to climb.
It's public speaking.
Okay.
Admittedly, like I said, I was the engineer. I was the guy behind the keyboard, and I made all the things happen from behind the scenes. And now I'm starting to step out. I'm starting to use my voice. I'm going from the shy kid I told myself I was to being I won't say like outspoken, but the more vocal version of myself that has a message to share with people, because I really feel passionate about this message around when we can master our mindset, when we can understand how our belief systems are capping our success, how it's shaping the world that we see, how it shapes how we see ourselves. The more people that are aware of that, the more happier that individual is going to be, their family is going to be, and ultimately our society is going to be. So more people need to hear that, and that's my next summit, is getting out of my own way, my own self-sabotage, not believing the lies I've told myself that I'm a shy person, and getting out there and doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Love it. So you guys can see Roshun next week at Allegiant Stadium. He'll be speaking in front of 60,000 people.
Yes.
At some point in the future. Roshun, dude, this was awesome, man.
Yeah.
This was like such high-level knowledge. Really appreciate you being here.
Thanks.
You guys, if you didn't get anything out of this episode, then you're just not really listening.
Yeah,
So
just throw your computers away.
Yeah, honestly. So I appreciate you joining in. Catch you guys next time.